All right. Hey, y'all. So I've seen a couple videos flying around about some people talking about how DC rivals might look or work, or how the characters might interact. So I thought I'd throw my hat in the ring since I've been really enjoying this series so far with Marvel Rivals characters. So before we get started, it would really help me and the channel if y'all would like, comment, and subscribe. It does numbers for the channel. It really helps me be able to make these videos more frequently and sustainably. But I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Let's rip it with this first character. Now, Superman is one of my favorite DC characters when he's written right as a symbol of light and good to counteract Batman's darkness. So, I tried to do him some justice as a Vanguard. Now for his primary fire, I decided to keep it simple and go with his heat vision. A pure beam of heat, slices through buildings with ease or really any destructible, lights enemies on fire once a buildup happens, something is similar to what we've seen from Emma Frost's Ultimate, how there's a buildup and then you get mind controlled. Now, instead of having any ammunition for this, it does have an overheat meter where he has to rub his eyes for a minute. Now for a secondary fire, we have Bullet Blocker. This is Clark's shielding ability that allows him to create an area around him where he can block all incoming projectiles while still being able to move at a much slower pace. Now for his first real ability, we have Cryo Breath. This is where Superman breathes in and shoots out a cone of freezing cold air that also has a build-up meter, much like his primary fire, that will freeze enemies once it maxes. This is exactly like Luna Snow's secondary fire, where once they take damage, they are broken free. This also coats the ground, so any enemies who walk on it will slip and slide, and when they get off of the area afterwards, they are slowed momentarily. Now for Superman's movement ability, we have Speed Bumps. This is where Superman can hit shift and dash forward, breaking the sound barrier and knocking everyone around him back a little bit. This also allows him to grab one character in front of him while he's dashing and slam them into a wall if it's nearby, much like Reinhardt's charge. So if they're a squishy, they're most likely going to die, and if they're a little bit bulkier than a squishy, then they're going to be able to survive the initial damage and then most likely die immediately afterwards. For his third ability, we have X-Ray Vision. Now upon activating this ability, Superman gains wall hacks. He can see through one wall and only sees the highlighted area of the character behind it. And I think it would be a really good way to have Superman have an ability to help out his backline against some flankers so he can see them coming before they ever get there. Now for his passive, we have Man of Steel. This allows Superman his flight and the ability to fly through destructible objects without resistance, so there's no getting caught on a reforming building for Superman. Additionally, this also gives him a slight damage reduction and makes him take less knockback. Now, the backhand of this is he's vulnerable to the kryptonited condition. Now, when kryptonited, he is unable to use his speed bump ability and he cannot fly. His movement speed is reduced and he is vulnerable, meaning he takes slightly more damage, losing his damage reduction in the process. Now I'm going to be doing team-ups at the very end of the episode, which means we get to get into his ultimate, Symbol of Hope. This is where Superman dashes into the sky, something akin to Hela's ult, before soaking in the sun's rays and firing off amplified heat vision at the enemy team. Now this pierces, dealing heavy damage, and incinerates any projectiles that cross through it. This also scars the ground, allowing you to make an S if you're feeling cute. Now, I'm going to be leaving out the voice lines for these ultimate abilities of these characters, but I would like to hear what you guys think they should be. So, in the comments down below, let me know what you think Superman and the rest of these characters should say when they ult, for the enemy team and the friendly side. Now, for some cosmetics that I'd like to see. Obviously, I would want Clark's suit, meaning just a nice suit or like a white button-up that's kind of busted open, revealing the S. And I'd like to actually see his tie wrapped around the back of him, flapping around like his cape usually does. Additionally, I'd also like to see Absolute Superman. I've been loving that issue so far. And obviously Injustice. And another one that I would really like to see is actually a Farm Boy Superman, something that Martha Kent would have had him wearing, some flannels, something nice, something he would have worn on the farm. Now with Clark complete, let's move on to the next member of the Big Three. I love Batman, and I really like the kit that I made for him as our first strategist. Now for Batman's primary fire, we have Batarang Throw. This is where he throws 3 Batarangs in a straight line that are all programmed to release a gas as they fly. This gas heals allies, and if the Batarang hits the ground, they explode into a big AoE of healing. Similar to Cloak and Dagger's healing ability, with their primary fire. However, this one is not lock-on, but does explode upon hitting the ground, so it's basically lock-on at that point. Now for a secondary fire, we have the exact same thing, however, it throws 3 batarangs in a fan pattern and faster instead of the line, something similar to Genji's primary fire if you're familiar with Overwatch. For his first real ability, we have Pharma Smokes. This is where Batman throws down a fistful of smoke bombs that heal in an AoE around him while obscuring the enemy's vision. Next up, we have Bat Claw. This is a grappling hook that hooks onto walls and can actually swing, allowing you to propel yourself upwards, carrying the momentum, something similar to what we've seen from Spider-Man's swing mixed with a grappling hook like Widowmaker's. Now to play off that, we have his third ability, Crushing Dive. While in the air, Batman can select a character, and if it's an enemy, he can crash onto them, knocking them down for a second, dealing some slight damage, or if they're an ally, granting a shield on them and being launched back up into the air. Now for his passive, we have Roz's Training. This allows Batman to climb and cling to walls as well as glide, and additionally, whenever Batman hits someone with his batarangs or his fists, it reduces his cooldowns by 1 second. As for Batman's ultimate ability, we have the Batwing. Now I would actually have this change different vehicles depending on the map, so that it would better fit for the Batwing or the Bat Submarine or the Batmobile, depending on the map. But the gist stays the same. Batman calls Oracle and she sends in the Batwing. Then an enormous bat-themed helicopter arrives and Batman leaps into it, piloting it like a turret similar to Punisher's turret. He fires canisters of gas that heal allies and blind enemies. The Batwing does have an insane amount of HP, but if you're able to damage it enough, Batman ejects from it and sends it crashing somewhere. So Batman would eject and it would kind of look like placing Moon Knight's ultimate. With Batman done, I want to talk about why I didn't make him a duelist. Number one, it was just too obvious. And I also don't think that that would show his intelligence. And also, if we always just go off of the characters that hit the hardest become duelists, then every single character in any comic would become a duelist. The exception of like Juggernaut, because comics show off strength. For example, in the comics, Thor is a city-level threat at minimum. He almost single-handedly lifted Sokovia in the MCU. But in Marvel Rivals, you can barely get a kill with his ultimate, let alone break a building. Obviously, there's some stretching here from the comics, and I think Batman fits the strategist role perfectly.
But that is not what I was planning. No! Look at me! As you wish.
While I hate Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman is actually my favorite superhero, from the DC side of things anyway. When it comes to pantheons, and specifically Greek and Roman pantheons, I absolutely love them, so Wonder Woman is right up my alley. And I tried to do her some justice with this DPS build. Now for her primary fire, I've given her just her normal sword, a fast, sweeping sword strike that damages multiple people in a very short range arc. Now as for her secondary fire, I've decided to give her her shield. Now, instead of Captain America, where this shield would block damage, I just instead decided to design this shield around parrying attacks. Now, when you hit your secondary fire button, right-click, you sweep the shield, and if you time it right, you can stun your enemy for 1 second, allowing you to get in a couple quick strikes. For her first real ability, we have the Lasso of Truth. You wind it up and you throw it at a character, who you then pull directly where you're facing. As a little way to tack on the inability of them to lie, I decided to also let it tell Wonder Woman the ult charge of the person grabbed. Next up, we have her Bracers of Submission. This is where Wonder Woman stows both her weapons and uses her bracers to block incoming damage, similar to Iron Fist. Next, we have her Dash of Hermes. This is a dash forward, allowing her to pierce straight through enemies, unless they have a secret effect applied when they get lassoed that allows you to take them with you. Now for her passive, we have Amazonian Training. This makes it so that with each successful attack, parry, or block, Wonder Woman can regain some temporary overshields, similar to magic. Now, moving on to her ultimate ability, we have Arsenal of Olympus. This empowers all of her abilities with brand new divine additions. Her primary fire gains a larger arc and a wider sweep. Her shield no longer has a cooldown and will knock back enemies upon parrying. Her Lasso of Truth's AoE gets larger and is capable of pulling multiple enemies. Her bracers deflect the incoming damage back towards the attacker, and her dash now will reset upon getting a kill. Alright, so now that we're done with the obvious ones that you saw in the thumbnail, let's get on to the 3 villains that I picked, one for each of the 3 heroes.
Metropolis is, and always has been, under the protection of Lex Luthor, you son of a bitch!
Now, originally I wanted to do Doomsday, but I thought it would be better to do Lex here and save Doomsday for a bit of a bigger video. But let me know some ideas y'all would have for Doomsday, and they might show up in my next video. But without further ado, let's get into Lex's abilities. For his primary fire, we have the Lex Tech Cannon. This is a part of his suit that fires a beam straight out of his palms, piercing enemies and dealing damage while provoking his passive that we'll get to in a moment. For his secondary fire, we have Force Field Projection. It fires out a projected shield that can be pushed out by holding the secondary fire button, similar to Emma Frost's new shield, but it's a full rectangle instead of that stupid diamond that doesn't block anything. For his movement ability, we have Booster Boots, which gives Lex the ability to dash in a direction he's facing and fly momentarily, something similar to Star-Lord. For his next ability, we have Kryptonite Overcharge. This allows Luthor to activate his Kryptonite core, heightening his abilities, making his beam wider, deal slightly more damage, and recharges the health on his shield faster. For his third ability, we have Protective Dome. Lex throws down a force field bubble around him and his allies. This is the equivalent of a Winston bubble, however the shield is green and Kryptonians cannot pass through. Now with his passive, Kryptonite Powered, when Lex damages a Kryptonian, he slowly builds the kryptonited effect on them, which causes them to hit the ground and become vulnerable, as we discussed with Superman. Additionally, dealing damage with your primary fire also recharges your shield faster. Now for Lex's ultimate ability, we have the Lex Tech War Suit. This is where he calls down an enormous mech suit, giving him roughly 1200 health, something like Monster Hulk. It allows him to launch his primary fire from both hands, doubling the output of his passive and increasing the health his shield can block. Now with Luthor dealt with, let's get to my pick for Wonder Woman's villain.
Let's see what kind of god you really are.
Now, I really like Ares as a villain, and in researching him, I think I managed to do him justice as both a god and a DPS character. Now for Ares' primary fire, we have Battle Axe. This is a powerful striking combo that deals critical damage if the target is on fire. This pairs perfectly with his secondary fire, Flame Blade, which merges both of his axes into one enormous flaming sword that sweeps the area and lighting his foes on fire for the duration, then immediately transmuting back into two battle axes. For his first ability, we have Spear Snare. This is where he transmutes his axe into a spear and hurls it at the enemy, and upon hitting, it deals slight damage and lowers the effectiveness of healing on the opponent. Next up, we have Battle Charge. This is a sprint ability where Ares can run and leap into the air before slamming down for AoE damage. Then we've got War Cry, where Ares screams out, getting a damage resistance and attack speed increase for the duration. Now for his passive, Bloodlust. This allows Ares to get an attack speed increase upon getting a kill and passively heal from the critical damage from his battle axes. Now for his ultimate ability, we have War God's Fury. This is where Ares slams both axes into the ground, knocking everyone around him up and toward him before exploding, lighting everyone on fire and slowing them if they try to walk in any direction that is not towards him. Now with Ares completed, let's move on to our final character, single-handedly the most iconic, dangerous Batman villain. The one, the only.
The uncanny Condiment King.
Now I know what you're thinking. Why not the Joker or someone better known? And to that, I gotta say, Condiment King deserves better, okay? Marvel Rivals brought spotlight to a ton of unknown characters, and I respect that. So I'm giving Condiment King his spotlight. For his primary fire, we have Ketchup Kill Shot. This is where the King fires a shot of ketchup that splatters onto the enemy, dealing damage or healing if it's an ally, doubling if they are in their secondary fire's area of effect. Speaking of his secondary fire, Mustard Gas allows him to spurt out mustard that releases a gas that covers an area, poisoning enemies and increasing the amount of healing allies receive. Now for his first ability, Hot Sauce Hellfire. He swaps the chambers of both cannons to hot sauce and fires out two streams of hot sauce that deal damage over time to any enemies that walk over it and marks the ground so that they cannot continue to walk over it. Additionally, any allies in the Hot Sauce Hellfire gain passive healing over time. For his second ability, we have Mayo Slide. This is where Condiment King splurts out a ball of mayo that slides forward, bouncing off of walls 3 times up to a certain distance, and leaves behind a streak of mayo. Allies move faster when walking across it, and enemies have a slowed effect that has a meter that builds up until they slip, falling down. Now for his passive, we have Relish Regen. Upon using any of his abilities, a small dose of relish drips into the king's bloodstream, granting him overshields and a slight passive heal after not taking damage for a few seconds. Now for his ultimate ability, we have the RPB&J, where the king holsters both cannons and pulls out a comically large bazooka before firing a massive peanut butter and jelly sandwich that splatters everywhere, dealing major damage to anyone hit directly by it, and allowing the splatter to slow enemies and deal major healing to allies. Now let's get into some of the team-ups that I made for this episode. Up first is Children of the Gods, where Wonder Woman is the anchor and Ares gains his enchanted battle axe, which allows his damage to hit through overshields, dealing damage to their direct health and bypassing their overshields. Next up, we have Otherworldly Flavor. This is where Condiment King and Superman team up, Superman being the anchor gaining more HP, and granting Condiment King access to a secret sauce aided by Superman's cryo breath that freezes people in place for a second when they walk over it. And now finally, I think personally the coolest team up that I've come up with today, Kryptonian Countermeasure, where Lex Luthor anchors with Batman, Lex gaining additional HP and a slight damage buff, and Batman gaining a kryptonite spear that he can hurl at any Kryptonian and instantly make them kryptonited, knocking them out of the sky and making them vulnerable. Now, just in closing, a couple map ideas that I had. I would love to see a Metropolis map, some Gotham City style maps, maybe something like King's Row. That would be cool. Arkham Asylum, that would be awesome. Maybe Brainiac's ship. We could do Themyscira. Ooh, Fortress of Solitude, that would be a sick one. The Batcave at certain points, that would be awesome. Maybe even a Krypton map where the attackers are trying to blow it up and it's up to the defense to try to save Krypton. That would be a fun one. All right, y'all. Those are my picks for DC Rivals. This is going to be an ongoing series until I fill out the graphic on screen, but if there's anyone y'all want on next, let me know in the comments. I love hearing back from you guys and hearing what you guys think about my builds. And I am going to revamp a couple of them eventually once I get a little deeper into it. Specifically Odin, because someone changed my mind and actually now I believe Odin should be a strategist. So, video coming out on that soon. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this DC Rivals video, and I'll see you all next time where I try to build the Teen Titans. Bye-bye.